Councilman Desulme was elected to the North Miami City Council representing District 4. The following year, he became the youngest councilman to serve as vice mayor for the city of North Miami, Florida, from 2016 to 2017, and won his bid for re-election in May 2019 with over 65% of the votes. Currently, Councilman Desulme is an adjunct professor at St. Thomas University in Miami Gardens, Florida, and an educational consultant for the ALB Global, a California-based organization. He has a doctoral degree in educational leadership from the University of New England, and his dissertation was on policies and procedures perceived by school leaders to reduce truancy in a public charter school. Okay, so over to you, Dr. Desulme. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you. So I have your presentation. I'll push it in the meantime while you start.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. And it's indeed an honor and a privilege for me to be here with the Rotary Club. And I think I'll probably hire Peter moving on to do my intro. But Peter, he remiss to talk about the business part, how we met many years ago working with a big corporation here in America.
Yes.
Ever since doing some great stuff. I won't say the name, but that's how we met, doing some good community work.
Yes.
We shall say before my public service year, but I always call it, it's always public service. Again, it's an honor for me to be here. On this Saturday morning, I see you guys are on a tight shift early.
Yes.
I normally don't get up this early, but hey, if Peter called, I say, hey, we got to do what we have to do. One day a year would not hurt. But again, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here with you guys. And I want to do a quick presentation on the importance of civic engagement as we get into not only the midterm, but beyond that, because I think when people think about civic life, they usually think about politics. And a lot of times it has not, it has more to do with us, with volunteerism, with the stuff that you guys do with the Rotary and other organizations, because that's what, that's who we are. That's the DNA in us. And I always say people pick, we don't pick what we do, or we don't pick the organization that we serve. That comes within us. That's part of us. That's part of who we are. And that's all encompassed of public service. So I will do a brief presentation. I don't think I could move it, Peter, so you could go on to the next slide. It's okay. I think it's six or five slides. Trying to keep it as brief, as short.
Okay.
Knowing the time. Yes, we could go on to the next one.
Okay, let me advance the slide.
Yes, sir. So today we'll discuss, what is civic engagement, an overview of, civic engagement and the meaning of the shift that had occurred since the pandemic, prior to the pandemic. And I don't know if a lot of you guys have noticed, for some reason, the days kind of going faster or gotten shorter. And it's not a psychological thing. It is something that happened. A lot of us, if we are, close with our spiritual, beings, that's a conversation that we have, because and it has a lot to do with timing, because you will have people who talk about, oh, it's time management. I don't have time to volunteer or to do other things because they are struggling with life as it is. And all of that happened before, right during the pandemic. And if you remember, we knew that this was happening, but it didn't occur to us, because as we were in the shutdown, we all were at home trying to, don't know what's going on, don't know what's happening. We were all jumping on and off Zooms, and we did not know, and I don't know if you guys had this, but I know a lot of people, we were missing Zoom to get on a Zoom. And we're like, wait, we are in a Zoom, what's going on here? But I gotta go get on the Zoom, But it really did not dawn on us that something different had happened until everything started to open up back up. For whatever reason, it's like, wait, we thought we had 24 hours, but you'll get up here, right now it's 9 o'clock, you know, a minute later, it'll be 12 o'clock, and it's real. And some people that does some psychological things too, because they be like, they have their, you know, they used to have their entire life, they had the whole day, you know, and now you really have to organize yourself not to be forgetful, not to, you know, write down things and doing things. And this becomes a big part of it, because this was already suffering when we did have time to volunteer, to do what we do, what you know, what we think that's right in the community. So we're going to talk about all of that, why it matters, real quick. Yes, sir. Next slide.
Okay.
This is just a quote about civic engagement. What is civic engagement? And I've seen different, you know, different definition of it, but this is a great one. And I think one of the members that was reading a quote from, you know, the Rotary talks about this particular, some aspect of this civic engagement, which means working to make a difference in civic lives in our community and develop the combination of knowledge, skills, value, and motivation to make a difference, which is what a lot of our organizations do. It means promoting the quality of life, which is what we're supposed to do as public servant. And you guys are also public servant. You do not have to be elected, you know, to be a public servant. It is really serving the people, serving, doing some good, somewhat of a good. And that's the part of this I like, both through political and non-political, because the political is a whole different world. And of course, we have our good public servant, which is the non-political, a lot of stuff that do the great work that you guys do that keep us going, because it's a twofold when it goes together. The next one, sir. And this is just a quick overview of what is civic engagement, as we talked about it in different communities is different. But when I was growing up, you know, we had to volunteer. It was just something that we had to do. You know, with the Sierra Club, you know, you just pick your thing. And I did the Sierra Club. I did, you know, so many different things, the Rotary, you know, this and that, the JCs. So I got involved, but it was a small group that of us that got involved. It wasn't everybody. So I do want to talk about that briefly. It's not everybody who's going to be having that calling, if I shall say. You know, you probably say, well, why isn't it the whole world is doing what I'm doing at the Rotary? This is the best organization. This is the best thing. We should have more people. Well, God designed for you to do what you're doing. And it's not everybody that's going to do it. That's why it's not everybody who is a leader. Part of the world, 90% of the world are followers, and the 10% of folks like you guys who are active in these organizations and all others are the leaders. And like it or not, there's nothing wrong with, because I'm a great follower as well. It's not every thing that I'm, you know, a leader in, because I may not like, you know, whatever the subject might be. You know, my colleague may be a leader in transportation. I may be a leader in different things. So that's all in aspects of how this is changing. But going back to this civic engagement, volunteerism not only has changed differently since COVID, but we have been trying, as an educator, trying to get our kids engaged somehow. They even added as a component of a high school requirement that they must do a couple of hours, which I never really liked the concept. I liked the fact that they were having them doing something, but I didn't like the concept that we had to make our kids doing something. I thought it had to come from the heart in terms of, you know, trying to get credit for high school, you know, for their high school diploma. And I finally realized, you know what, at this point, they just, you know, whatever that they get, let's just settle it instead of them doing nothing, because that's the bottom line. These kids are not interested in nothing. Money is becoming the priority. There's the environment, anything that you could possibly think of, things that we are thinking of. And there's a slide before we finish here that just shows you a couple decades ago how many people that was into volunteerism, that was helping out, that it means something to help your neighbors. It means something to be part of an organization such as the Rotary and all these other great organizations, and that's not happening anymore. And this is just really, I was doing my research and I remember this type of, when we talked about social change, when we talked about volunteerism, someone talked about, well, what are the forms of ways that you could volunteer? What are the ways that you could contribute to your community? And these are just different ways. I mean, it's not the same way anymore. It has changed drastically. And we'll talk a little bit about the social media ways of doing things now, but advocacy. I mean, you have people who doesn't have the time, like I may have the time to get on the computer and do some things and be here, but they have money and we need money. So those philanthropies are important. They are part of the, giving back and contribution, because it's not everybody with money that who becomes, part of giving. So these are some of the areas where change, the will of change, they call it the social change of will. So you talked about your advocacy, your association, and from protesting, demonstration, social entrepreneurship, voting, all of these different activities, community organizing, community building. So all of that is part of what we do when we think about, I won't say social justice, but when we talk about, when we think about this type of work, volunteerism, when we talk about giving back to the community, all the great things that we do within us trying to better ourselves in our community. Next. And this is where I wanted to just take a second, and we're wrapping up, as we talked about the difference between then and now. But if you look at the slide, this has occurred just a couple years. It's not decades. I thought, looking when I was doing the research, this was because I was looking at something a couple decades ago, which the numbers were very, very high. But in 2011, volunteering reached its highest since 2006, and this is where this is where this is a good thing, where we talk about nearly 8 billion hours and local and this and this and that. That's good in that number, but remember, this 8-hour billion are all these kids who's supposed to put in hours and adding your hours, my hours, and what we do is, and all of the folks, the way they calculate these hours, all of the people who are elected, if they're not getting, they also are counted into this hour as well. And then the organizations, but those who doesn't get a salary are definitely counted into these. And then the young kids and what they do now, there's a national day many years ago, which is a national thing where they encourage folks to volunteer and do what needs to happen. Those numbers, the 8 billion, it looks very, very big. But if you look at the slide next to it that says nearly 1 in 4 Americans, estimated 64.3 million, have served as a volunteer. Have served. That number a decade ago was almost double. So you do see a shift in generational gap. The kids now, who are the baby boomers, I guess starting with my folks in my age, I'm in my early 40s. Even then, it kind of started back then. When I was in high school, it was better, but it wasn't as good as it was prior to me on. and it's getting worse. So it's people like you guys who really need to fuel and talk about and keep it going and get folks, I guess young folks, regular folks, everybody, anybody who wants to activate and do what needs to be done. Lastly, I want to talk about and touch on the ways things have changed and the way you could volunteer with the social media, that has evolved, because everything now is done through social media. You could do things where you are posting at home. These kids do not, their phone is everything to them. I see them doing classwork, everything, how we have to have I have to have the laptop, to do everything. But these kids, just their little thing, they're on there, they do everything. So you may have an organization that needs that outreach, because that's what's happening right now. And when I said that outreach, their ways of outreach is, TikTok, it's Facebook. Our thing is Facebook. Our demographic is Facebook and up, but they are Twitter, they are Instagram. So you may need to find them. And I don't know nothing about a lot of these social media platforms. I know some, but so I get these young high school kids who do know, and I kind of help them to kind of help promote it, because either I do that or I get left behind in the fold. So those are some ways that we could find them to do. But when we are doing some volunteerism, there's this new, a couple of years ago that started, where you don't have to leave your house. You could do mass emailing from home. You could do mass texting from home, because that's becoming something all big. And now the big thing is the virtual calling. You help organization through calling, where you dial from the computer and they keep track of what you do. Political campaigns done it, nonprofits have done it. So it's a ways where you don't have to leave the house. So they're finding ways, which is bad, but hey, it is something, because it's the new ways we just have to adapt into the new ways of, I guess, identifying civic engagement. It's a different ways of how we used to think of going out and having our meeting, getting together. And now we're in Zoom. We're all in different location of meetings. So that is one exception, but now it's how do we tie it to make it work? It's virtual. It's doing the work virtually and doing what needs to be done. So I will stop here for any question or anything. I just think that it was important, and I was honored when Peter called and asked me to speak, especially now as we are getting ready. I have several midterms, getting ready for down here in the Key State in Florida, but also doing all the good work, the non-for-profit work here, and teaching them about how do we do virtual work, in this time of age. So I want to stop here and say, if there's any question, I'll be more than happy. I'm looking at the time, being mindful of this tight shift that you guys are amazing you're doing. Yes, Mr. President, I'm done.
I'm so sorry a while ago. I mean, I got frozen and I was trying to, get back in. So I apologize for that. So I don't know how many slides I missed.
No, I think we were towards the end. So I was able to do it. I didn't even know